Welcome to the Lemonade Car Show, brought to you by Omvik and Crown. I'm joined today by Georgini, the president of the APA, and Chris Muir, he's our mechanic, and I'm your host, Lorraine Sommerfeld. Top segment is always what's going on in the news, what's going on in the auto industry, what's going on with Chrysler.
Well, the owner, Fiat, is actually shopping it around. And one of the potential partners is a Chinese company. Mm-hmm. So partner, I should say buyers, is a Chinese.
One of the buyers, yeah. Which could completely change the dynamic of that company again. I mean, we've seen them switch hands a few times now, and every time they emerge, I don't think it's the result that the original purchaser was looking for.
That's a very, very diplomatic way of putting it. What's the impact on consumers first and the dealer network second?
I think for the dealers, they put on a brave face, mm-hmm. but they must be worried too a little bit. The product they've been getting from Chrysler the truck side is still strong,
yes,
but the car side is a disaster. And you know, they've been forced to kind of take on Fiat, which was obviously never going to go anywhere, and now Alfa Romeo as well.
Yeah.
And so my sense is that those were just flights of fancy. So at this point, the question would be, after the sale, what brands would still be the ones that they want to focus on, and eventually they're going to be a distribution network for Chinese product.
I remember years ago, Detroit Auto Show, seeing, it's probably 10 years ago now, the Chinese manufacturers are representing by putting their own badges on existing cars like Corollas, or building their own cars out of cardboard. In one case, the door came off in our hand and we can see the cardboard. So the Chinese manufacturing side was a joke in the industry. It was like, what are they doing? They've been working triple time, overtime. What kind of presence are they going to be having? They've got a huge population.
China is the world's largest automaker now, mm-hmm. for their domestic market. So we've had just a couple of made-in-China models here. The Honda Fit, mm-hmm. and I think this year there's one Buick model that's coming from China.
So the laughter has stopped. This is going to be, this is the future.
The government there did what perhaps governments in the West don't do, is they had an industrial strategy that they were very serious about. Mm-hmm. And they said, if you want to build and sell here, you have to partner with somebody local. So they now have access to the most highly automated assembly processes and the designs as well. So presumably once that knowledge is homegrown, they would be able to use it and re-export back to us. That's probably the direction.
Yeah, very likely.
So this could make the product better?
This could make the product better in the long run. I mean, if you want to see kind of a reflection of that, look at Tata Motors and what they did with Rover and Jaguar. Mm-hmm. They've definitely made an improvement in the quality of those products over their last holder, for sure. And that was a relationship that a lot of people question. An Indian car maker coming in and buying a couple of UK...
that Ford couldn't manage to get to make a success out of. So. Mm-hmm.
Switching gears a little bit, we talked recently about flood damaged cars, whether we'll see them, whether we won't see them. If we do, it won't be for a while, you were saying in the break.
That's right, Lorraine. When we look at used vehicle lots, I'm thinking some years ago when we were in Western Canada, it took a long time before you actually saw the vehicles for sale retail here. I guess there's a process involved in writing them off in the US or moving around the paperwork, so that you won't necessarily see them coming in right away.
But in some respects, that's a bad thing, because you won't be as wary as you are right now when the headlines are dominating with, you know, 1 million cars written off in Houston alone before Florida even got hit. So if it's a year or two, and especially if those were late model cars now, so we're going to have to be
vigilant. If you're buying a vehicle that comes from the U.S., you do a history search and maybe you pass if you're concerned that it came from an area that may have had flooding.
Is there any time when the APA would recommend, people will ask us, you, me, I found this car in the U.S., I'm going to bring it up. And I usually go, is it a special car? Is it a collector car? Is there some reason why you can't get it here? Because once you do that, you lose a lot of the protections you have here in Canada. Mm-hmm. So is there a point where you do recommend someone do that? Is it ever worthwhile to do that with the currency?
When the Canadian dollar was strong, yes, we had a lot of buying power, and both professionals and private people were buying cars in the U.S. If you're looking for a fully loaded convertible, there might be times of year our market is so short and it's seasonal and everybody wants them all at the same time. It might make sense to pick up a vehicle from the States. If you're not specialist yourself, or if you don't already have a home down there to do your shopping, an alternative is to deal with someone who already brings vehicles in. Give them their cut, They're charging you for a service. They have people at the auction down there. They know how to review the vehicle history. It's worth it. And they'll make sure the vehicle is brought in here before it so that you can buy it.
And you bring up a good point. We say up here, if you're buying a used vehicle, to have a mechanic check it out.
Yes.
Down there or anywhere else, even in the country, have somebody with eyes on that vehicle for you if you're on Kijiji or anywhere physically.
Somebody very trusted with a good reputation as well. They don't license the same way that we do for their trades in the States, so that's something else to keep in mind. Try and get a referral to a mechanic in the States.
I know there's some services, one of my sons is looking all the time on that, and he's got someone who I think out in Calgary, $100, and he's a mechanic, and this is what he does. He'll go and check out listed cars for people to save them the grief of doing that. And granted, these kids are all in their 20s, and they're like, you know, they're not going to fly out and check it, but it's the equivalent, hopefully, of having someone like you put it up on the hook.
Absolutely.
Okay. We'll be back after this break with more Lemonade. Welcome back to the Lemonade Car Show, brought to you by Omvik and Crown. I'm joined now by George Indy, the president of the APA, and we welcome Larry Bristowe, the owner of Consumers Tire. Hi, Larry.
Hi, good to see you again, Lorraine.
Must be that time of year. We got Larry on the show.
Winter's coming, winter's coming.
Tires.
Yeah.
What's new? This is like Paris Fashion Week, only for tires. What's new for?
Well, I guess the BF Goodrich, they've changed. They've offered. They've got a new offering. Some different tread design and supposedly an improvement over the last year's model, and we're starting. I know every year all-weather tires get thrown into the mix. Hankook has a new all-weather tire now that they're starting to promote a little bit more. So we'll see what the winter brings.
There was a tire that was all-weather that was sold only by Canadian Tire, correct?
This is a different one now.
Okay, so it's a better tire because that one wasn't so hot.
We're hoping it's going to be a better tire.
Okay. And the tire promotions, like if you're buying 4 of a type?
They've started. You have some that have started 1st of September.
Yeah.
1st of September, and then you've got most of them are starting the middle of October.
Right.
So that's when you'll see
so you
most
can
of
get,
them.
what, $50 to $100 off?
It'll be $40 to $100, depending on the supplier, the manufacturer, depending on the particular tread design, because they kind of scale them. Bridgestone, Michelin, they tend to just use one discount and whatever you buy, where some of the other manufacturers will scale it, depending on the size and the price of the tire. So the tread design really dictates the rebate you get back.
Are the car makers still going crazy with wheel sizes, or is there have we now reached a maximum?
I don't know. We were talking today. We've got the new Volvos now are on the XC90s are on 22-inch.
Wow, that's a standard rim for that?
So on the top trim package.
Wow.
And so it's getting a little crazy
for
still.
Inventory, no, also?
It's not too bad, because usually when you talk about winter tires anyways, is you usually will bring them down, do a -1, -2 fitment, whatever.
Do you want to explain that to viewers?
Yeah, we can. The idea is just starting, if we take the 22-inch, usually we're taking it down to an 18.
Wow.
Okay, which seems
Will that fit around the brakes?
It'll fit around the brakes. Long as and when you're in that big, you're going to use an alloy wheel. You won't be using a steel wheel. A lot of times a steel wheel won't fit, but usually on a higher end vehicle they want to stay with an alloy wheel anyways. But you can take it down to an 18-inch. You go down to a 235 60/18.
When you mentioned 22-inch wheels, I think that's something people should think about when they're buying new cars. A lot of times you go, wow, I love it, and then you go to replace those tires, and you find out
It's a shock.
very, very pricey to
The
start
other
getting
thing
into them.
they need to really realize is the difference on a run-flat tire and a non-run-flat tire.
That's a bad word in our industry.
Because when they come in to get a price to replace them, and you say, oh, they're run-flats, a lot of people don't know they even have a run-flat tire. And then when you explain the difference, and it's like, oh my God, and it's more money, then
It's a lot more money.
In some cases, it's actually closed the gap down a bit. As they come more, it's like anything. It's like TPMS.
Yeah.
TPMS used to be really expensive, but as
it's
it
come
became
down.
more popular, it comes down.
Can you explain the difference between a run flat and a regular
A
tire for
run
viewers?
flat. I don't like the terminology run flat. I
By the
would.
way, it will only run flat once.
Once.
You have to
Yeah.
change it, and probably the other tire on the
It's a
same
match.
axle.
You can only strike it once.
It's basically a tire that is capable of running a short distance without air.
It's a safety.
The idea is to be able to get you off the highway or
No
off.
blowout,
No.
in theory. So
Well,
that's-
it can
you have
blow.
to
It,
correct.
it can,
Right.
but in
Theory, yeah.
theory, you're right. But like I say, I'm not a big fan of a run flat tire, but you're seeing it on more and more vehicles.
And for the car maker, there's weight and cost savings because they don't put a spare in
spare
the
in,
trunk.
yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So on some cars, you don't even have the round hole
The
if you
donut.
wanted to buy a spare, which is a problem. Like the BMWs, where do you, if you want to put a
Some of the BMWs have it, but they put electronics in there to stop you from putting
a compact spare?
a compact spare. Most of the minis, you can buy a mini compact spare, and they have a spot to put it. And we have a lot of clients that we've done that. Got for $120, they can get one.
This is when people are buying cars. That's one of the flags I put up for people
Well,
about
now you have
tires.
to
The
look in
cost
the
of
trunk
replacing,
when
and
you're gonna think of it.
do you have a spare? Because a lot of them don't.
Because the funny thing, a lot of times the sales, they don't say, oh, by the way, it comes on run flat tires.
Yeah.
So the customer doesn't even realize it till you say to them, oh, you have a run flat tire. Or you get somebody who drives around on it, the light comes on, and they drive around on it, and they ruin the tire before it finally gives out on them.
Well, it's getting more complicated to buy cars anyway, I think, in a lot of ways, which is why I like the APA service, because they will point out things like that to you. But yeah, tires are becoming very pricey on some of these cars, and when you talk about 22-inch tires that are coming stock, that's,
I should also point out this fall, the APA's tire reviews will be up.
oh, good.
So we have both tires for compact SUVs and then tires for just regular standard sedans.
So people can go get all the information they
Yeah,
need.
big belief we have is that we make you more informed, so you're a better shopper.
Perfect. We'll be back after this break with more Lemonade Car Show. Welcome back to the Lemonade Car Show, brought to you by Omvik and Crown. I'm joined today by Chris Muir, our mechanic, and he's a professor at Centennial College. I love saying that. And Larry Bristowe joins us again. He's with the owner of Consumers Tire. We're coming into that time of year where we're looking at winter tires. It's the time to start thinking about this, right? You're both going to start getting very busy, you selling tires and installing them, you installing them. What usually happens, everyone waits till what? Say it. The first
last minute,
snowfall.
the first snow.
Till the snow. That's actually they're getting better. They're getting better. I think the awareness of the winter tire now and the importance of putting it on. And I didn't think it would make a difference, but the insurance company's offering a discount, and you have to have them on by. I think some are November 15th.
Each
Some are the
company's different.
1st of November. Yeah.
Yeah, check your policy, folks.
So that's kind of got people to the point where they're getting them on and not waiting. And some people have done it now, long enough now. They know, I want to beat the rush. I'm going to get in and get it on.
Yeah.
I think too, hopefully in the media, we've been trying hard with this topic, which is it's not about snow and ice, it's about temperature.
Yes.
And the compounds in tires are changing just as rapidly as the rest of the industry. It's becoming more, it's higher tech, it's more precise, and it matters. Your tires matter a great deal, and your car can be spectacular in every other way. If you've got garbage tires on it, you're going to compromise every one of those safety systems, as well as everyone in the car. So we're trying very hard to say we're not paid by tire companies.
No,
we don't have, we all have them on.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
and we're cheap, like auto
Well,
journalists.
and the other thing too is that there are a lot of vehicles coming now with a summer tire, not an all-season tire. It's a summer tire. So a summer tire is more susceptible to the cold temperature, and it can shock you. You get that 7 degrees, and you can really lose your handling in a hurry.
Oh, certainly.
So.
We use some pretty specialized tires for the off-road stuff, and I mean the difference between a cold rock first thing in the morning and a warm rock in the mid-afternoon is the difference between us getting up and not. So just that 5 or 10 degree temperature variance is night and day to a tire.
I think sometimes we look at a tire, and I wrote about this recently, that it looks okay. And it's also about the age of the rubber, because it degrades, and ultraviolet light and dryness and everything else. So it looks all right. It's like, oh, it's got lots of tread left on it. It's still good. You know, Dad's had this car for 15 years and never replaced the tires, but he's only driven, 3,000 kilometers on it. So actually, both of you could speak to this, but I'm going to ask Larry first. What should we be looking for?
The rule of thumb now is 5 years of service. Okay, so you can look at the DOT, and the DOT, the last 4 digits, will give you the week and the year the tire was manufactured. Okay, so, and why they say 5 years of service is the tire manufacturers allow a couple of years for it to be in the warehouse, in the store, being distributed and so on. So if your tire is, say, 6 years or older from the DOT, even if it looks good, you're not getting anywhere near the same grip because it's got harder, it's drying out.
Yep.
It doesn't have the same elasticity. So 6 years is usually when you want to look at, and especially with the winter tire, because the winter tire, you don't put a lot of wear on it. So a good winter tire will last you 5-6 seasons, and you may still think, oh, I can get one more out of it, and really you're kidding yourself.
And that one time when it doesn't deliver is the time when you need it.
The thing that I tell my customers, when the sipe disappears, which is those tiny, tiny lines that are actually in the block of tread, the tire's done. It might have lots of lug to it, but it's got nothing to stick you to that ice.
What do we, when I go to a tire shop and I look for that DOT, which the week and the year that you said, I call it the date of birth.
Okay.
Which it's not, but it is. If I go into a shop and I'm going to do it like I do with lettuce, I'm going to want the most recent date. What's reasonable and what's unreasonable when I go shopping for tires?
Okay. That's why the 5-year service sort of thing is.
People like me down, haven't you?
We get it all the time. They want the latest, they want it cooked yesterday sort of thing. And as a tire dealer, we can't dictate to the manufacturer, but the manufacturers do a pretty good job of keeping their inventory rolling. Okay, so you're not usually getting age. If you get into age product, then you have to make, and you can get into some age product, but usually if you can get something that's no more than a year old, then that's fine. It's not going to be
That's what we need. We need a general, like if it's within a year, that's fine.
Within a year. Because what's going to happen is you're going to buy winter tires this year. I guarantee you that we'll have 2016 manufacturer dates on it, because they don't wait to 2017 to build the winter tire. So you're going to have some carryover inventory. That happens all the time, but it's not going to affect the performance of the tire.
And tires are warranted, and it's from when you buy it or when it's born?
From the date of purchase.
Date of purchase. Okay, so you're protected.
Yeah, and all manufacturers is date of purchase. Doesn't matter what tire it is you buy. So you're protected. You go, and quite honestly, if we, 99% of the time when you call to do a warranty claim with any of the manufacturers, they pretty much always will do something for you. The biggest problem is people come in when you're so busy, and it's a kind of a bit of a lengthy process, and most dealers don't want to take the time to go through the process. But if you got time to go through it, most of the manufacturers will do something. It is prorated. It is prorated. It isn't, you get the odd person that comes in and thinks they're going to get a free tire.
Okay. We'll be back with more tire talk on the Lemonade Car Show. Welcome back to the Lemonade Car Show, brought to you by Omvik and Crown. I'm with Chris Muir and Larry Bristowe. We're talking tires. Common question when you go for an oil change, they say, do you want a tire rotation? Or they say, you need a tire rotation. Larry, what's a tire rotation? Do you need them? Does every car need them?
As long as you don't have a stagger fitment where you have a different size on the rear than the front, yes, you're going to do you should do a rotation, front to back. And usually every oil change is not a bad time to do it.
Okay.
Or depending on the mileage, if that's a high mileage car, or if when you do your changeovers summer to winter, most dealers will mark the tires, bring them off, so you automatically get a rotation when they put the winter tire or your summer tire back on for you.
So this is to maintain wear, to make sure that they're wearing
exactly.
evenly. If you have a tire, though, that's wearing weird in one spot, like the outside front, what's causing that? Because your tires are telling you things.
Yeah, absolutely. They're a pretty good indicator of the general health of your suspension. And when a tire is wearing oddly, or a set of tires starts wearing in an odd pattern, be it they get choppy or they get carved off on one side or the other, you need to get your car into a mechanic. Get the suspension checked. Make sure the shocks are in good shape. That'll give you a nice feathered appearance. Make sure that the wheels are all aligned going down the road in the same direction, that you don't have any play in any front end components. It's definitely an indicator of the car's overall suspension health.
Okay. Another question we get frequently is when somebody has what they believe is a slow leak, even in a new set of tires, and they're going in and going in and going in and putting air in it frequently. It's often the rim. It's not the tire, and so they're saying to their tire supplier, "You sold me a faulty tire." It's the rim. Can you explain what that rim is doing? It's corroding.
Yeah, it's like any piece of metal. It's corroding. The tire is really good at scrubbing off the finish on the inside of that bead. So you expose your tire to water that seeps in, or your rim to water that seeps in, salt that seeps in, and it starts to corrode between the bead of the tire and the rim itself. And as that corrosion comes in, it's not nice and smooth like the original rim surface. It actually pokes up in sections and allows air to escape around it.
So you're seeing a slowly deflating tire, but you're not correcting the problem until you replace that rim.
You can repair the rim.
You two can fight about this now.
You can. I mean, generally what we'll do, we have that situation is we'll buff the wheel, okay, and then you put a sealer on, and that will give you a fix maybe for a year or 6 months or whatever. Once you start buffing and sealing, it will be an ongoing process.
You're patching.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
I want to get this into before we go, because we're always short on time. Tire pressure monitor gauges. You buy a car, and when one of them goes off, the little 4 things tell you that something's down PSI. You put it. When you go to put winter tires on, you have to buy a set of those gauges if you want the gauges to be working properly.
If
for
you
your
have a
monitors.
direct system. If your car has an indirect system, then you don't have to worry about it.
Okay.
So that's the difference. So a direct system, quickly, it's in the valve stem, so that sends it to the computer. An indirect system works off ABS brakes. So your German cars, the Audis, the Volkswagens, Mercedes, they have indirect systems, so you don't have to worry about it in the valve stem.
They measure a difference in wheel rotation.
Yeah.
A flat tire doesn't turn as often as a inflated tire. And it'll see that difference and say, hey, this one's a little bit low.
In the States, you have to put in
Correct.
a set of gauges. They haven't made it law here. Do you think they're going to soon? Is it a thing?
I don't know, but what I am seeing is we're getting more people putting them in.
The prices come down.
The
considerably.
prices come down, and when you tell them it is a safety feature, it was built in the car for a reason, and we're finding more and more people putting it in. We go through a lot more than we've ever gone through in the past.
What's the price point at? I remember not too long ago, it was like $1,000.
You're looking at $250 tax in.
So everything's in. So when you do your tires, factor them in.
Yeah.
The other thing I recommend people when they're buying a car, factor in the winter tires at your point of purchase. When you're already biting off that huge bunch of money, factor in the winters so that you've got them, because you shouldn't be on the road without them in this country.
Yeah.
Quebec's the only place they're mandated. Do you think we're going to see it rolled out across more parts of the country? I know Vancouver that you don't need them, I understand. Lower Vancouver, Vancouver Island.
I don't think right now, because
Would be popular.
every year there's more and more people putting them on, so it's kind of the message is getting out there, I think. And I remember at one point, I think it was like 32% of Ontario drivers had winter tires, and I think it's getting close to 70% now. So it's slowly coming. So I doubt whether you're going to see it be made mandatory.
What worries me is in places like, I believe it's Saskatchewan and Alberta, on rental cars, there's no winter tires available. In Quebec and New Brunswick, most of them have. Well, Quebec they have to, in New Brunswick most of them do. But all the rental, when you land in the winter, especially now we're coming into winter season, check ahead, because even if you say you want winter tires on your rental, they'll say we'll try, but they don't guarantee it. And these are all the major places. So Larry, everyone should be starting to book their...
Remember 7 degrees. Once we get to 7 degrees, that's when you want consistent, that's when you want to be sure you get your tires switched over.
And again, read your insurance policy to see when it's
Or
mandated.
what did they want in
And
it?
remember that if you are in disagreement with that insurance policy, you're on your own. You're not really insured because you are in breach of that insurance contract.
Apparently, they haven't gone to court with it yet. It hasn't become a thing, but there's always a test case that'll come up. I was speaking to a broker recently because I said, you know, what's going on? Because they can deny the claim if you say you have winter tires and you don't have them on. And she said, it hasn't been tested yet, but
Do you
it'll
want to
come
be the
court.
guinea pig?
Yeah.
No, well, I kind of do. It'd be a great story. No, I don't. I would
Follow
not.
the
I
guinea
would
pig.
not.
Don't be the guinea pig.
Don't be the guinea pig. That's all the time we have for Lemonade Car Show. I'd like to thank Onvik and Crown and my guests Chris Muir and Larry Bristowe and you viewers. Thank you.